Hey, everybody. Welcome to Love and Reload, the voice of the relocation industry. I am your host, Ben Cross, and I'm here with my co-host, Sandy McKinney from Wykert. Hey, Sandy, how's it going?
Hi, Ben. How's it going? Great to be
It
here
is
today.
great. I'm so happy to have you here. I'm thrilled about what we're doing. Do you want to tell people a little bit about what's going on? And before we do that, real quick, if you're watching right now, hit that like button, throw a little love out here to Sandy. Get in the comments. Let us know who you are, where you are, what you're up to right now. I'd love to hear your questions, your comments. Sandy, what are we doing today?
Well, what we're really doing is a follow-up from our session earlier in the year where we had a great discussion, Ben, and I thank you for that and giving us the platform to continue this dream of mine, basically, in giving back to the industry and putting together a mentoring program for especially the young professionals that are in the industry. And that's really our goal. And today is the first launch introduction show for this, and we're just looking forward to some of the guests that we have and learning more about what we can do to help some folks in this industry.
Sandy, when you were on before, people were so on fire. They were so inspired by your energy, just the tips that you were giving, your stories that you were telling. It really did. You could tell there was a lot of traction there, and it really, a lot of people identified with it. Right. And after that, we've been getting so many folks reaching out, asking about mentorship, asking about this special. How can I mentor? How can I be a mentee? So people are really wanting to get involved. Are there going to be opportunities for people who are watching this today to get involved in the future?
Absolutely. That's the goal of this whole program, is to bring about a platform that says, if you're someone who's, I just want to use the word maybe seasoned in this industry. I don't like to use the word older, but if you're someone who has something to give, someone who has had the opportunity to have successes and be taught by someone else, and really utilize your platform, Ben, to bring those folks together. Because not only have, since the last show, I've had a lot of people reach out to me like, how can I help? But I've had a lot of people as well say, Sandy, I'm so excited to learn more. What can I do? And there's just example after example of what we're going to provide you and how we're going to structure this and be very organic about it. That's really the intent. The intent is, what does the audience want? What is people really, what are you looking for in a mentor? And
I love that.
What we're going to do is we're going to give you some suggestions, and we're going to invite you to be open-minded and bring energy and bring a positive mindset to this. And from there, we're going to, if you will, pivot as we walk through this journey together.
I love that. And let's put that out to the audience. I see people checking in right now, and this is fantastic. We've got a lot of folks checking in here. This is great. Keep checking in the comments. I want to ask the audience, what do you want in a mentor? Throw that in the comments. I think that's wonderful food for thought as we go into this. What are you looking for in a mentor, or what would you like to see in your dream mentor situation? We got people checking in. Should we go check on some of these folks here? Let's see what people are saying.
Let's do it, Ben.
Look at this, super producer Stacy here.
Hey, Stacy. Couldn't do it without her.
Yeah, oh my gosh, she's so amazing. She's fantastic. Yeah. And it's interesting in talking to Stacy, and Stacy, I'm gonna put you on the spot just a little bit. I'm looking at her face backstage there. No, but Stacy is one of these amazing people, and she brought up the point that some people don't always get mentorship outside of their organization. Right. You get who you got, right? And then how do you get to people outside of those four walls?
Right.
That's a common challenge. Is that something that you've seen, or do you understand?
Well, I think it's something that's common in all of our business experiences is, some companies have formal mentoring programs. The larger the organization, sometimes the more available those types of programs are. But in addition to that, I think others really have to look at it within themselves and say, how can I get this and what can I do? I know for myself, most of my mentors came through my journey of my career within the companies. But then as I matured, then I realized I need to step out of that boundary and really look into different facets of how I'm mentored, both, from an organic perspective, like we're talking about, but also from a structured perspective that, I shared before, that I do a lot of coaching, and, coaching can be mentoring, and that, you pay for it, but you ultimately are getting coached on how you want to approach things and how you want to approach life. So I agree. I think this, and we said it before, and I think one of the big things that we said before was that we wanted to be able to throw this out to anyone in the industry. And you'll see that some of our guests today are direct competitors of myself. And that's what this is all about. This is not about competition in this industry. This is about making sure that as we move on in our life journey, that this industry is, continues to thrive.
I love it. I love it. This is fantastic. We're going to just take a couple more comments here and then get to our guest here. Jana, awesome to see this happening. I know this is Janaina's passion of hers as well.
Yes.
Mentoring women, especially women of color. This is great. Francine Drusty, hi, Ben and Sandy. This is so awesome. Looking forward to this conversation. Francine's got a big birthday coming up. Happy birthday, Francine. Stacy, hi, Ben and Sandy. I'm so excited for this.
Hey, Stace.
And she's great. Hey, Tessa Boone, our friend Tessa.
Hey, Tessa, how are you? You were on my list, my friend.
This is great. Molly Spalding checking in.
Hey, Molly.
Tom Brune, looking forward to the topic of today's show. Formal mentor programs didn't even exist when I started my career.
Interesting.
Tom, how did you work around that? Love to hear that. Yeah. Tessa, loving the positive mindset. Oh my gosh, people love the limiting beliefs, the idea about limiting. Oh my gosh, so many people love that. It was great. Alan Molesky, unfortunately, we tried that in the past, both the ERC and AMSA, and neither were successful, talking about mentor programs.
Well, and Sue's here today, and we're going to talk about that a little bit. We're going to talk about where we want to drive some of this. And again, it doesn't have to be so structured that it has to fit in a box. We want it to be very organic so that we can pivot as we go along.
This is great. We got people checking in. Jackie, Candy, I'd love your comments. Brian Rivers, this is great. David Sharon checking in. This is great. Please keep them coming here. Anything Sandy says anything Sandy's part of is solid gold.
Well, thanks, Jill. That's very
that's great. All right. Well, I'm going to keep these comments coming, keep the questions coming as well. Sandy, I'm going to let you kind of drive from here on out. I'm going to be paying attention to the comments, getting active over here. Okay.
Absolutely.
And I'll let you introduce the folks that are joining us.
Yeah, today. Absolutely. We'll do that. And please interject then as they come through. And if we need to go into a different direction, we're willing to do that. I know that I've spoken to a lot of these folks that, how can we really set something up that isn't so structured that it's like one more chore to do, but it is valuable to folks that really are looking for additional assistance on how to get ahead. And I'll just give you an example. A couple weeks ago, we were at the CRC's first live event in Chicago at the Botanical Garden. And I've got Pam and Sue with me that I'm going to introduce here in a second, but we were not only at this event, but one of the things that I thought was just amazing is they did one of those Ignite sessions, and they had a lot of individuals that it was their first time up in front of a group. Now think about that for a minute, Ben. It's your first time up. It's the first event in 15 plus months. Everybody's sitting on the edge of their seats. Everybody's anxious to see each other. And it was such an awesome experience that it gave me goosebumps as I was sitting there participating in that event, because it's like, this is the future of our industry. And that was pretty darn cool. And I commend Erica and Denise Mask and Dory for putting that together, because that was a great event.
Yeah, I remember Jennifer Rodriguez, I think, participated in that, spoke, and she actually spoke about how that was her first time on stage. So it's really cool to see those opportunities for sure.
Exactly. Well, let's get to our guest. I have invited 3 individuals that I have known for a long time to join us today. So if we could just bring them all out at this point, I'd like to introduce the first guest being Sue Carey at Relocation Decisions, and Pam Jacknick at NEI, and Mike Fila over at Auto Relocations Plus. And I have graciously, or I should say they have graciously accepted my invitation to join us today and share some of their experiences and to really dive into what we visualize. So let me set the stage a little bit, and then I'll turn it over to you. So the framework of what we're looking to do is we will begin next Thursday, and Ben has graciously allowed us to utilize his platform here on Love and Relo for a 4-part series. So starting next Thursday, every other Thursday after that at 4 p.m. Eastern, 3 p.m. Central, and so on, we will come on the platform here at Love and Relo, and we will bring additional guests into this platform, and we'll talk about mentoring. And we'll get more ideas, like you asked, Ben, what are people looking for in mentoring? And then from there, what we're looking to do is grow it organically to either one of 3 things. We will begin to match up cohorts, what I call cohorts of mentors and proteges, mentees, or we'll do some kind of group mentoring where individuals in a certain segment of the industry will work with, like, for example, Sue as a Relo director for a number of years and successful on Worldwide ERC's board of directors. We'll have her invite guests and she'll talk about that. And we'll do that, in a separate platform. We won't utilize all of Ben's platforms for that, but we'll do that in a separate platform. And then we'll begin to look at options in classroom forms as well. So it really just depends on how we want to take this approach. I have a feeling a lot of this is going to end up in those first 2 categories, where people are going to want to match up one-on-one. And then secondly, there'll be opportunities to talk about, like Pam and I talked about, helping specifically women advance into the RMC sales space and what that looks like. So there are going to be very specific things like that, but we'll drill down to that. So we'll begin with, why don't we begin, Sue, since you're in my upper right-hand corner, why don't we begin with you? And Sue has been a dear friend and such the utmost professional here in the Midwest and in Chicagoland that it's just been an incredible experience to work side by side with Sue on so many things. So Sue, welcome to the show. And we would love to understand your vision of what this mentoring program looks like.
Oh, well, thank you. Thank you for having me, both Sandy and Ben. It's just a joy to be here. I miss seeing everyone. I'm so excited that I'm in Chicago because, as you all know, we'll be meeting live in October. So I'm looking forward to that. So thanks for an opportunity. I think anyone that I've worked with knows that I'm really passionate about mobility. I've always loved my job, and I sort of fell into it at a very young age. At the age of 26, I was put into a job with, as Ben mentioned, I had no one to really mentor me within a company. I had to go outside a company because I was replacing someone. They just let the other party go and put me in that job at 26 years of age. With 200 inventory properties, for those that don't know, I was a relocation director at a large real estate firm, independent real estate firm, 200 inventory properties and all these RMCs. It was a very difficult time. And I found, and I believe mentorship comes from a couple different places. One, a mentor could be like a trainer, somebody that's going to train you in steps to do or steps to take. But the other thing is really like an influencer or an advisor. And I've been very blessed to have both. My trainer was the infamous Walter Hall, because the company that I started work with in 1980 as a Relo director literally shipped me out to Walter Hall, founder of Relocation Resources. And I did a week's worth of boot camp at an RMC to really learn the ins and outs. Incredible.
And a lot of people, Sue, don't know Walter because, some of us are a little bit more, let's just say we've got older sneakers than others. And from that perspective, we need to kind of maybe tell the audience who Walter really was.
Well, I think for those of us that are more seasoned with really old sneakers, Walter's like the grandfather of relocation, honestly. Relocation Resources, he was a founder there, but he even had something called the Hall Institute of Real Estate. And I'm sure there are a few brokers on our call today, and you've known about Relocation Resources, which now is a part of Weicker. Yeah. But he helped lay the foundation and was sort of he just paved the way for a lot of the processes within RMC. So it was great training. But beyond that, I really think like advisors throughout my career have been really helpful. And I'm excited, and I think I've had the opportunity to be a little bit of that for people. But my advisors are corporate people, like a Larry Gersh at Kraft Foods was very generous, and Marita Strickland back in the old days at Abbott. So corporate people that just advised me or allowed me to peek into their world. So my viewpoint of mentorship is inviting people to see part of my world and how it fits into the ecosystem, and to just really advise what to look for in that aspect, but not ever give up on being a good listener and learning, because I still learn every day. And my friends in RDC, Relocation Directors Council, has been the utmost best learning platform for me from the start of my membership there. It's the best of relo directors across the country, and they've improved my skills, and I still learn.
Absolutely.
So, Sandy, may I ask Sue a question here? Sue, you just called out two or three really great people there. How did you form those relationships? I mean, you talked about some corporate folks. I mean, everybody's trying to make those relationships, right, for various reasons. But I mean, how did you form those meaningful relationships?
Oh, thank you for that question, because I think it's really critical. How do you get into those doors? Through Relocation Directors Council gave me a platform where I was with my peers, although I was perhaps less seasoned than many when I first joined, because I'm a longtime member of RDC. Just recently rolled off as my role with Baird & Warner changed. But RDC gave me an opportunity to give back, to be a joiner, to raise my hand, and to get involved. And so when I am mentoring someone, I encourage them to do that. Raise your hand, get involved, be on a panel, support, even signing people in at a meeting. And that's what I did with both RDC and with Worldwide ERC. And then that introduced me to people. And frankly, a lot of my career it was a grassroots effort. It was Marita from Abbott or Larry from Kraft or leaders at RMCs that said, you ought to call Sue Carey about that. But they got to know me because I was a joiner and I raised my hand constantly.
Go ahead, Ben.
I'm sorry, Sandy, but I have to say this. I have to tell this super, super quick story. The first time I met Sue Carey, or the first time I think we've ever really exchanged, words and everything, I raised my hand. I remember Heidi Hume called me at ERC. Mm-hmm. Somebody couldn't show up for a sketch they were doing to honor Dale Collins, and it was some Mobility Jeopardy thing, and it was you, it was Bill Grable, and they needed like a third contestant or something for this sketch. Yep. And Ryan Wittropa was Alex Trebek, right? And that's where I met you, because she's like, Ben, are you here? I need you in the Virginia ballroom in 15 minutes or whatever. And I was like, all right, Heidi, let me finish my gin and tonic. I'll be right there. And I, boom, shot over there. And that's where I met you, Sue. And so I totally endorse what you're saying about being a joiner and raise your hand. I think it's
just being a joiner and giving back. And surround yourself with people that give back, that aren't just takers. I think that's just a key piece.
Very true.
And wouldn't you say, and we're going to get to Mike and Pam here in a second, but wouldn't you say, Sue, when you look at that, even the corporate people, I know Tessa's on here today, and corporate people today, even for those of us, the older sneakers, they're just, I love
Indeed,
it.
Tessa.
For those of us that have older sneakers, we learn every day from those individuals. And so I want to turn it over. Mike, why don't you share a little bit about yours and how you've, we've all got this thread between us, Ben. It's kind of cool. We met yesterday and the four of us have a pretty good thread between us. So Mike, let me give you the platform here a little bit and share a little bit of your thoughts.
Sure. Thank you, Sandy. I appreciate it. And thank you for having me on the show here. My dad had a saying years ago when I first came to work for my dad 26 years ago. He told me, Mike, relocation is a very big business, but a very small fraternity of people. Mm-hmm. And that has held true in all my years in relo. I remember I went to my first ERC and it was like a high school reunion, almost, right? And, and people, and nobody shakes hands. It's all hugs and how are you? Everybody knows everything about everybody. And I thought to myself, man, I really like this industry. Here I am, I'm 25, 26 years old at the time. I go to my first big it was in Nashville at the Opryland Hotel. There was only about 2,000 to 3,000 people there, I think. And it's easy to get lost in that group. But, fortunately for me, and much like Sue, my first mentor was a corporate person as well. Her name is Kim Gramlich, now Kim Heller. And she knew everybody, and like we mentioned, everybody wants to forge a relationship with someone from the corporate side. And we hit it off. She was already a client of ours. And we just decided, okay, we're both young kids in this industry. Our sneakers were new at the time. Mm-hmm. And so we, chummed around and just she introduced me to everybody, whether it was one of her providers, whether it was a fellow corporate person. And that really changed the landscape for me because, at ERC, it's really, really big, but then, it can be really, really small very quickly. Mm-hmm. Right? And that's where it comes about. But nonetheless, I still keep in touch with him to this day, 26 years old. She hasn't been in the industry for 10, 15 years. I wouldn't have passed the CRP exam without her, quite frankly. Mm-hmm. So, but having that opportunity to open up doors was a big deal. And I remember several years later getting ready for an ERC. I'm packing my suitcase up and I told my wife, I said, man, I can't wait to get there to see all my friends. And she looked at me odd, like, what do you mean? These people are just people you work with. It's a conference. It's, I was like, no, you don't know this industry. They're friends. And she came to the one in Anaheim. There was a big dinner that night. And I remember the first person I introduced her to, Sue, was Larry Gersh. And she was like, okay, now I understand this,
And Mike, let me ask you this question. As far as when that corporate person kind of took you under their wing and showed you the ropes, what do you think was the turning point for that relationship as far as why you instead of me? Why you instead? What could somebody do at that age that, could really benefit from that? Because I have a feeling it was a very authentic relationship.
It really was. It still is to this day. In fact, she came and saw me at the ERC in Boston, and we had dinner and whatnot, and still very genuine. It's interesting. Why me and not somebody else? We had already done business. I think the common thread was we were both newcomers to the industry, so we were both really learning the industry. I actually have an interesting story of, why me instead of somebody else. At one point I was the president of BayPerm, which is now BAM. And I'll never forget a woman by the name of Ciela Lewis and some of you in the audience probably know her, great person. Mm-hmm. She came up to me. I was in this group of people and she comes up to me, kind of touches me on the arm and pulls me aside and says, hey, you know a lot of people, it seems. I think I want to hang out with you. Can we be friends? And I looked at her and I said, what's your name? And, so we started that friendship and I started introducing her to everybody at the BAM meeting or BayPerm meeting at the time.
Mm-hmm.
Fiala had a very long career in the industry.
Mm-hmm.
And, just recently retired, if you will. And she actually went on to be president of Southern California Relocation Council at one time as well. So, you know, I guess in a little bit, you got to be a little bold, being able to stick your neck out there, because it's easy to be a wallflower. It really is.
Yeah.
But if you have someone that can take you under their wing, you know, Sue Carey's introduced me to a lot of people.
Yeah.
I consider Sue Carey a very good friend in this industry.
Well, and I want to get back to that point of being bold. You know, Brendan Burchard always says, what is your next big bold move? And sometimes we've got to look at that, in not only for our young professionals, but all of us. And what is our next big bold move?
Sure.
And so we're going to get back to that. I want to give the audience an introduction to our third guest, Pam Jacknick from NEI Global Relocation. So welcome, Pam. I know it's hard to stay quiet, so I appreciate that. But
you know me, and you know me. I was being very patient.
I do know you. And so I welcome you to this, and thank you again for joining us. But we'd love to hear your insights on this as well.
Sure. Well, thank you again. And being here with my friends is just a sheer delight, as you guys know. This is really a lot of fun. So thank you, Ben and Sandy, for asking us to do this. You know, when I look back, and again, we won't say, I like the term old sneakers and, you know, being tenured or seasoned or whatever term we want to use. But, you know, I think when we all look back on our careers, however long they are or short they are, we realize that, you know, none of us went to college for relocation, but yet we all ended up here and we all stay here. And I think there's a reason for that. I think our industry is different, and it allows us to be a mentor to individuals, because that allows us to give back all the benefits that we've reaped from the mentors that we've personally had. Sure. You know, when I look back, you know, I started in our industry when I was 18 years old, believe it or not, as a weekend secretary at Baird & Warner. And my first mentor was the manager of that office, who took me under his wing, got me into real estate, and I sold for 2 years, and handled relocation when I always say relocation wasn't cool. Nobody wanted to handle those relo properties. You mean you want me to clean? I remember cleaning bathrooms at a place before the realtor tour came through. I mean, that was what I was doing, right? You know, doing what you needed to do. And then from there, I often look, you know, you think of where your path takes you. So it started with my manager, Bill, who I still keep in touch with. You know, as Mike was saying, to this day, still keep in touch with him, still a lifelong friend. You know, but then my mentorship shifted as I gravitated into relo. If I never had that stepping stone with Bill to stay in and give relocation, real estate a chance, I never would have ended up in the RMC world, and grew from there. And just I think the one thing that I take away is I was making a list yesterday, trying to think of all the mentors that I've had along the way, and not even exaggerating. I kind of ran out of paper. You were kind of going through the lines of, well, it was this person during that job, and then it was this person during that role. And it were those individuals within the company. But what I learned as I grew more in my maybe different accelerated roles, now specifically in client development, I realized, you know what, you need to, the more people you touch, the more your span of influence, your touch points, reap you volumes of rewards in return.
Absolutely.
And I think the one thing that that young folks, I'll say, or the newer sneakers of the group need to realize is, like when we go to regional groups or having opportunities like this, it's not around getting in front of a corporate representative each and every time. If you have the opportunity, that's a wonderful opportunity. And of course, it's fostering the relationships that we have, because I may have a market that I'm responsible for, And I can name 3 or 4 mentors that I have alone just in that market because they've given me other stepping stones or other learning opportunities. So I think it's our industry is different. And I will tell a funny story that I told yesterday to the group is that my son Tyler, last week when we had our Wisconsin first in-person event, of course, there was all the hugs and the oh my gosh, we finally have gotten to be together in person. He happened to be at the ball game, ended early. And so his friend dropped him off and he took the last leg of the tour with us, right? So we had a walking tour. So he was walking, met all of the people that I've spoken to and about to him through his life. I've been in relocation all his life. We end up at the happy hour at the end, and I introduced him to Sandy, of one of the individuals who was there. And we're on the drive home, and he says, Mom, so who is Sandy? And I said, oh, she does what I do. She goes, oh, she's with your company? I said, oh, no, she's one of my competitors. Mm-hmm. He looked at me kind of strange, and I said, what you need to understand, and it's that to broaden your horizons in life, don't look at who's your competitor. Don't look at who's who you're going to get something out of. Just go into it with an open mind, and it'll reap volumes for you. I said, Sandy and I have been friends for over 15 years, right? Not longer. And yes, we're competitors. And yes, we both love to win. And that's what makes us, I think, that much stronger in just helping each other along the way, just in our individual areas. So.
Absolutely. And Pam, I appreciate that, man. It was awesome to meet your son. And that is exactly what I'm talking about. That is exactly what this incredible opportunity to share not only our wealth and our knowledge of the industry, but also our experiences and our mindset. I mean, if we can energize the next individuals that are willing to come through this program. I mean, one of the things that I learned early on through my last year that Ben, you and I shared a couple months ago was, we all live in this emotional home, if you will. So this emotional home is a space that this is where we go back to when the pandemic hits, right, everybody? So when that happens, then we all go back there. But now we have the opportunity to really upgrade that emotional home. And platforms like this allow us to do that. And it allows us to be able to show your son that Pam and I have been competitors for years, but that doesn't stop us from being friends. So I commend you for that. And, great son, by the way. So fun stuff there. So Ben, let's talk to your audience a little bit about what they're looking for and utilizing a platform like this. So if you're out there, if you can add some comments to talk about what, if you had a mentor, what would that look like to you? And what could they offer you on a one-to-one, or like we talked about, maybe a group mentoring program? What would be good? What would you like? What would be the top 2 or 3 things you would love to get out of that type of program? So let's ask.
Yeah, I love that. Let's do that. So leave that in the comments, everybody. Let's see what we've got here. We've got a whole bunch of really great comments. People are tagging their favorite mentors and people that they want shout outs to. I mean, that's so cool. Let's see here. Jody Harris has a great comment here along those lines. Let's find out what people want in mentorship. Mentorship is so important in learning and growing a career. I would love to see some mentors for young people in the corporate world. I always try to make myself available for new people in the industry.
Well, what's so interesting about that comment? One of the 4 shows, Jody, I am visualizing that we will have I shared this with the team yesterday, that we would only have corporate individual speakers. And Jody, you were on the list with Tessa and maybe some others that I've got. So if you have suggestions or you're out there and you would like to participate in that show, just let me know or tag it, put a comment. We would love to have you, because I think that is critical, because there's a lot of individuals that want and need to be mentored from the corporate perspective. And I think that's important. Sure.
Yeah, I think what's interesting about the new people in the industry, right? I mean, we were kind of telling the story of how we got started, and I think a lot of it really clicked for us when we went to conferences.
Uh-huh.
But there's so many people that don't get to conferences and don't get
Right.
out of the office. I mean, that was one of the reasons we started Love and Relo, honestly, because I was sitting at a conference and I was feeling all the feels, and I was thinking about all the people that couldn't be there in the moment with me and share
Right.
this. 99% of the relocation industry doesn't show up to conferences.
Right.
And so how do we distill this and package it and bring it to you, you know? And that's one of the things I love, Sandy, I love about this, because even if people can't take part in a formalized mentor program at an ERC or an industry association, we could package it using the gifts we have with social media and everything for
Right.
people. So I'm really excited about it.
No, and you're so right, because there's so many people that might be in an operational position or a client service position that unfortunately, for just obvious reasons within large companies, they're just not going to be approved for the travel and the expense of attending those types of events. And
Right.
so that in itself offers the platform, because, you know, I know each of us had that experience. I mean, Sue, you got sent to Boston for a week. Mike, your dad put you in a position that you could be with a client, and Pam, you were in a position that all of a sudden you had to raise your hand and move and pivot your industry,
Yep.
you know, your career path to go in that direction. So anybody want to add on that they, you know, could see the advantages of that?
Well,
Maybe.
I think you brought up a good point earlier, Ben. You alluded to it a little bit. You know, the regional relocation groups are such a valuable resource. You know, my first introduction was CRC in Chicago many years ago, and then when I moved to Southern California, SCRC, and then BAM after that. But I would encourage anybody that, you know, get involved somehow, some way with those. You know, one of the best ways is just to raise your hand. If they send out an email that says we need volunteers to pass out papers or work the registration booth, do it, because you'll meet more people doing that.
Did we lose Mike?
What's that? Oh,
Yeah, we lost Mike.
Okay.
Mike, you there?
I'm here.
Gotcha.
Yeah, we're here, Ben. We've got it.
Sorry, it was me.
That's
My
okay.
bad.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. All good.
Go
I
ahead,
was
Mike.
just saying, you know, you'll meet more people at the regional groups, and then that just expands your network going out into, you know, the larger conferences if you're able to attend.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I would jump on that wholeheartedly. I think when I look at the growth of where I did raise my hand, because I mentioned that was one of the main ways that I got to learn and got to meet people. It went from my own little peer group with Relocation Directors Council into CRC, Corporate Relocation Council in Chicago, up to Worldwide ERC. You just keep moving yourself forward, and every time you're invited, just say yes.
Yeah.
Maybe, you know, just say yes, and you never know what's going to come
Very
up.
true.
You just don't know what's around the corner.
Well, Christina just put a comment, Ben, that you put up there, and I think that that's a very valid comment as far as the local chapters, especially offering a seasonal buddy pass for those that can't get their company's buy-in on that. And I know CRC did that at one point many years back, where we offered an opportunity for individuals that may not be individuals that would routinely go to those types of events to come free of charge and offer opportunities to get that exposure. So yes, there's definitely a lot of opportunities within our regional groups to help grow that mentorship.
We've got a couple more comments here. Let's see what we've got. Christina brings up a good one here. She has some topics she would like to see: relationship building, breaking down the corporate supplier divide, career transitioning, and planning. So I guess it's like, hey, I want to build relationships. I want to meet people, you know, clients. And if I can't do that, I need to find another job, is basically what Christina's saying. I need to help with these three things right here.
Transition out.
Or transition into a different role within the space, you know. So if I'm in corporate housing, do I want to get into the household goods industry? Or, you know, if I'm in mortgage assistance, do I want to get into more of the RMC space? And there's that crossover of how you take those steps and those career paths I've seen a lot of success with individuals that have done, many different avenues on that.
Yeah, the ecosystem is tremendous. It's so
Yes.
large that you just have to find your sweet spot and just keep at it until you find that sweet spot.
Yep.
Absolutely, Sue.
Well, and I think, as we're talking about volunteering or giving your time, and I've had some people say to me, wow, you offer a lot of your time. And right, speaking for the group, it's usually the same core group that we kind of rotate a little bit. So I think you have to be very, I don't want to say selective, but don't go into it with a preconceived notion. Just volunteer and know that you're going to reap the rewards in the future, and spread yourself around a little bit and offer to help to get that visibility, like Mike was saying earlier too. Sometimes just working a registration desk, you meet so many people. I think it's just going in with the understanding that you're just going to try to give more that you're going to receive. Go into that with that understanding, and you'll come out being very happy with the outcome, I would say.
Pam, I love what you're saying there too, because so often when we're like, oh gosh, should I go to this regional? Like, I kind of have something to do that night. I really would rather watch Netflix. I'd really rather, should I really go? Should I really make the trip? Is it worth it? That's like the question. Is it worth it? Is it worth the cost? Is it worth the time? What am I going to get out of it? But Pam, to your point, if you go in thinking more about what you have to give and how you can make an impact and how you can volunteer, to Mike's point, and help out on a committee or whatever, and go in there trying to just focus on giving and not receiving, you're going to meet more people. You're going to find yourself, you're going to find better fit. I love what you're saying there.
And you're going to build the relationships.
Yeah,
you are. And I do think that those of us that really love to be part of mobility, if you really love it, you're sort of an empathetic person anyway. So Sandy, the four of us were talking yesterday, and we were talking about entering this with a servant's heart and just wanting to, just looking for relationships, do it based on relationship building and wanting to give back. And the rewards you end up with are just insurmountable. You just can't even imagine.
When I was president of the regional groups out here in California, the one thing I always looked for was people that wanted to be involved for the good of everyone in the organization.
Right.
It's easy to want to be involved just, oh gosh, I want to get that introduction because I want to make that sale, and I get that obviously that can be part of it. But if you're involved, be there for the good of everybody. And then ultimately, it just ends up being a great experience for you and them. Right.
And bring the value. What value do you bring? And, sometimes, to your point, Pam, it may be just checking off names at the registration desk, or it may be you as a speaker that you have an expertise in that area, or it might be a mindset. I mean, I love what Al says there, that mentorship equals TCP, trust, clarity, and participation.
Right.
I mean, isn't that the truth when you think about it? You do have to trust that this is developed from a serving heart perspective, that there's no agenda behind any of this, and that the clarity that we want to bring to this program is truly that we want the industry to continue to thrive, and we want to give back as the older sneakers in the crowd. And then, of course, participate. And what does that look like? I mean, some of the things I said yesterday during our planning call was like, well, from right now, if we look at it, we really don't know what this is going to look like after our 4-part series. We have an idea. We have a framework. We know what we want to do. But if the audience doesn't need that or want that, we want to be able to pivot and really respond to that, because the ultimate outcome is to say, what do you want? And we want to give it to you at this point. And go ahead, Ben, please.
Well, I was just gonna. This is great. We got some amazing little stories here. Mary Piper,
Right.
My first role at Houston Relocation Professionals was volunteering at the registration table. It was wonderful meeting all the members of the group.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, registration tables at regional conferences. Everybody needs. They always need volunteers. It's perfect for a junior person. If you can alphabetize a list of people's name tags, you are qualified to work the registration table. Okay, and you will meet every single person there. Just do that. That is the biggest hack life hack right there.
That's
We've got
funny.
this great story. DJ Lizzie Beats here, aka
Hey,
Elizabeth
Liz.
Martin.
Lizzie
So a
B.
few months back, C21 came knocking at my door. I had no idea about a franchise and other things. All I knew was my leading real estate world. My biggest mentor, Pam O'Connor, mentioned how Sue might be a great person to speak with. I was a little hesitant because we were competitors as well. I mustered up the courage, called Sue. The competitor side was put aside, and she took me under her wing and helped me a great deal. I don't know what I would have done without speaking with her. She and Pam J also helped.
Yeah.
My
cool is
pleasure,
that?
Liz. Thank you.
And that, Liz told me that story a couple weeks ago too. And everybody has that type of story. I mean, when you think about it, it truly is people giving back to others. And so I think that that's pretty cool where we can continue to offer that. Love it, Mike.
A little motion sensor.
It's peak season. Got to keep the lights on.
We're fishing over here.
I started to how we go into the regional groups, of course the big ERC as well, of course worldwide ERC, but we go into the regional groups and you realize when you've been going for so many years, you look around the room and pretty much everyone in the room, right? By face and by, with my memory, I have to look at the name tag sometimes, make sure you remember names and such, but you remember everybody's face. And I started doing it now post-COVID, even more so. I started at CRC. There were 3 folks there I didn't know. And I knew they weren't, I could tell they weren't corporate members, but this was probably their first event because I had never seen them there before. So I was making it my personal checklist, let's call it, that when I went up to them and introduced myself and said hello. 2 of them have since called me, so we've exchanged. I think that's how you can almost be an informal mentor to make somebody get over that uncomfortableness, right, of being at a regional meeting or where they probably no one, and have the chance to, to have that. We've talked about having and we've done it before, having buddy systems at those regional events for first timers, just so that they feel a little bit more comfortable before they're a part of the bigger family. So.
Absolutely.
That's always successful. We've done that with Relocation Directors Council always, but ERC too. I can remember when I first started at ERC, and Mike, you talk about all the hugging and things, and you go into some of the exhibit halls in the prior days, and everybody starts hugging. If you're new, how intimidating! You feel like you don't know anyone.
Yeah.
Well, I think that the first time attendee gatherings are important, or mentorship programs, anything that might be possible for you to do, or sit at a table where you don't know other people, just to see if you can't be a listener and a help and introduce yourself. I think ERC is a great place for that too.
Sorry to interrupt there, Sue, but think about that from a corporate perspective. So Jody, Tessa, and others that are on here today, from a corporate perspective, if you are a new corporate young professional and you walk into a worldwide ERC and you're, let's just kind of say you're a little bit of a bait there that people are trying to get from a supplier perspective, and you're kind of fearful of the stories you've heard. But think about what they are thinking and how intimidating that is for them. So as corporate members, if you could really latch into that, and I'm sure a lot of you do that in your corporate roundtables and such, but anything that we can do to help ease that intimidation, I think is so critical for so many of you. So there we are. Here's Janet inviting us, and especially to the first timers orientation at the worldwide
Workforce Symposium up there in Chicago. This reminds me, actually, as you're talking about that, this is something that I worked on an ambassador program that we did for 2 years at ERC, and then it just kind of went away. But I mean, basically what it was you have all the first time attendees, And I also remember my first ERC was San Antonio in 2010 or 2011, right? It was the national one. And I also felt like it was a little cliquish, to be honest with you. I'm like, I'm here, I'm ready to meet people. And then you have these kind of like cliques, you know? And I was like, okay, well, now my job is to break in and get into the in crowd, right? That was my thing. Okay, let me do this. And so I hear that. And so you feel like, and it's a little overwhelming. It's so big and there's so much going on, and there's the parties and the education and the expo hall. And it's overwhelming, especially if it's your first conference at all, right? And so one of the things that we tried with ERC, which I thought was really successful, was this ambassador program where you reach out to all of the first-time attendees and you assign them to a seasoned person, right? And maybe you give a group of 10 to 20, and because like I say, there's 100, so you have 5 ambassadors, whatever. And then you can meet them and say, okay, if you want a guided tour of the expo hall, if you want to ask questions in a safe environment, and also come together and like kind of meet your I call it your pledge class, right? The same, you know, the people, your first timers, you know, group, and bond over an experience and like kind of learn, you know, okay, here's how you win the iPad, you know, and here's how you punch the card, and here's what to do, and hey, watch out, you know, that booth over there, they're going to get you, you know, so you got to be careful, you know, don't make eye contact. It's dangerous out here, you know. So, and oh, by the way, here's the party on Wednesday. Here's the party on Thursday. You know, here's what you want to do. And, you know, just giving those tips and tricks. And we had a lot of fun with that ambassador program. And I would hope that we could do that again sometime.
Absolutely. Well, anything else that the comments been? Here we go.
Yeah. Farrell, my first convention was ERC in Boston. I was terrified. I hid behind my boss the whole time. Now I can't wait for Chicago.
There you go. And sometimes it takes that first one to understand what's going on. And it really does. The more you get into those cliques, and it can be clicky. I mean, it's probably still, it's less than it used to be, but you know, that's where, you know, taking down those barriers and bringing in all of this can really, really benefit folks and get the most out of those conferences.
Yeah, Janet's saying, I remember the ambassadors program, working on it. That's awesome. Janet, reach out to me if you need help with that. I'm you know, I'd love to do that again. It was so much fun. Candy Wright says, how about how to navigate your first conference?
All right.
Best practices.
Yeah.
I like
That's a good
that.
suggestion. I like that.
I like that too.
Yeah. Well, and you know, and that first time is a real make or break experience. If you have the time of your life, like I'm sure we all did, you're coming back, right? It's your career. If it was kind of like odd and I didn't really connect with people and I just felt like I was on an island, then maybe you never come back, you know? So I think it's really important, that first one.
Or in some cases, I've talked to some corporate folks and they've said, oh, there's no way that I'm, you know, going to do that again. It's too big. I'm staying with the regional groups. And I know folks that they've been that way.
Sure.
Yep. Christina loves the idea of a conference tour and ambassadors for first timers. Very cool. Business travel show in London has huddles where you can meet people. Interesting. Okay, cool.
Good idea. Yep.
Yeah, Jana, I met Jana in Boston at her first ERC. She now works for my company now, which is really weird to say. She says, I'm here listening and remembering how fantastic my first ERC experience was, how welcoming you all were, how belonging I felt, and how sure I was that I chose the right place to be. Yeah, very cool. Thanks, Jana.
Those are great experiences. And you know, I like the idea of, you know, we're talking about a lot about the industry now, but you know, I think as I would invite some of your listeners to really think about not only how do you build relationships, and I love the idea of the best practices, but I'd also invite you to think about how do I maneuver my career within a certain company? How do I get to that promotion? How do I move from operations to client services, or client services to sales, or how, you know, what are my opportunities, not so much in your company, but how do I prepare myself? And is that the right position for me? And, you know, talking to folks that have walked that path is something I think can be a benefit to a lot of folks. And to say, you know, do I have the stomach for this? And go down that path. And Stacy says, how about something to make people aware of all the different regional and national conferences available to attend and join? And I think that's the platform. I think many of the groups have been trying to put out there. Stacey, it's a good point on the availability of what that is. And what does that look like post-COVID? I mean, it really depends on a lot of things, right?
Yeah, it'd be interesting to have a resource to be able to go to, click on it and say, okay, let's see, I'm planning to do a business trip to New York or Florida or whatever. You know, instead of having to search in each one individually, we need to have a resource to go to.
And I think we're going to end up, depending on what the listeners want in terms of how to mentor one-on-one in a group or whatever. Imagine if you end up joining a group as part of this conversation or this topic. Right now, you've already expanded your circle of acquaintances within the industry and within the ecosystem. So what we're talking about right now is that opportunity to join. And I just get all pumped up about even that.
Absolutely.
Sue, you have so much energy. I love it.
Yeah. and just to close it out, guys, it's so much the fact that we're removing those limiting beliefs. I'm going to circle back to that, Ben. I'm going to circle back to the fact that all of us have limiting beliefs when we're at the beginning of our careers or at a point where we're not sure where to go next. And it's like, you know, am I good enough? Am I smart enough? Am I connected? Oh, I'm an introvert. How am I going to be an extrovert? You know, all those things that come into play. And basically what I would invite each of you to look at is finding a mentor that can help you walk through removing those limiting beliefs and what that looks like to you individually. And that's what we're talking about with mentoring. We truly are looking at things. And I'll say one thing in our closing here, and I'll ask our guests to close here in a second, but I would ask you to do one thing because, you know, pain is happening in all of our lives today. Suffering is a choice we make. And so when you think about that, you can do one thing to remove the suffering in your life. And I would invite you to take this into consideration and trade your expectations for appreciation. And if you do that, I'm telling you, those suffering and the pain and what it brings you in joy and fulfillment in life, it will change. So we invite you to join us. Sue, any last comments you want to kind of close it in?
Well, I have two things. One, and I think I said it earlier, just surround yourself with positive people. It's just been something I think has been so rewarding in my life is to do that. And I've been very blessed in that way. And then the second, there's a phrase that I learned, and it was a motivational speaker at ERC, like way back when. I can't even remember. It was one of the conferences in Texas. Anyway, this gal said something that I have always loved. And in fact, at one point I laminated it and gave it to my whole department. When the horse is dead, get off. I've always wanted to say that on a show or a podcast.
That's great.
I love it.
So that comes from an ERC speaker. When the horse is dead, get off. I guess the point is, you know what? If something's not rewarding in your life, look for what might be. And there are a whole bunch of people in this industry that would love to help you with that.
Yeah.
That's great advice. Love it. Love it. Mike, anything?
You know, I agree with Sue. I mean, you know, surrounding yourself with positive people is a big deal. I consider myself to be a positive person, and I'm outwardly outgoing, I guess you could say. But there are those times where I kind of sit back and go, gee, I don't know anybody in this room. How am I going to get in? And then you got to, you know, the only thing you could do is just stick your hand out to shake and say hello and introduce yourself. So I look forward to this. There were some great suggestions from the community that was watching the show, and I like some of them. The one that Richard put, the pre-event through a Zoom meeting or something like that. That's kind of a neat idea. So, you know, a lot of great ideas can come of this.
All right, Pam, just a couple minutes, and then I know, Ben, you need to run. Yes.
I will just give my family's saying is love what you do and you never work a day in your life. So if you don't love what you do, as Sue was saying, as Mike was saying, find a part of our business that gives you fulfillment and pay it forward.
Absolutely, Pam. So
Perfect.
thank you all. It's been wonderful sharing this time together.
Yep.
Thank you for your generosity of time. And I know each of you have this passion to move this project forward. So I would invite the audience, please join us. The series starts next Thursday during Love and Relo at 4 p.m. Eastern, 3 p.m. Central. Please join us for the first of the 4-part series. So thank you all. Live with passion.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Be well.
Bye, everybody.
Yeah.